Hey, how you doing there again, folks? Me again, of course, Brandon Wenzel. Come back at you. Another confession off my Concert Confession series. Yes, indeed, folks. Concert Confession series is a vlog series that I've been doing for a little while now, where I go over there and I yammer on about my various concert-related exploits. It's where I go over there and I confess my concert sins, I reveal my recreational revelries, and where I muse about my musical misadventures. Basically, it's just one big ego stroke and then, just an excuse for me to go over there and yammer on about concerts and stuff that I went to, because I really like live music. But we'll get to that. Folks, it's a super simple format. It is just going to be me going over there and just spouting out nonsense about shows that I attended for probably around 20 minutes or so. Whilst I'm doing all that, I'm inside my back room today, which means we get Beer Can Thunderbolt poster. Ooh, Beer Can Thunderbolt poster. Whilst I'm doing all that, folks, I am doing something else. What is it? Well, I happen to be wearing a super cool shirt. Folks, when I wear super cool shirts, I always like to highlight the super cool shirt. What super cool shirt am I wearing for you today, though? Happens to be my Cultus Black shirt, which is appropriate given the topic of this particular episode of Concert Confessions. If you're unfamiliar with Cultus Black, though, they're a band that's been around for a few years now. I think they got started in, I believe, 2019. I think it was a little bit before the pandemic hit. And they've been doing it ever since. They're a very theatrical band, sort of kind of nu metal stylings, but not in the most nu metal of nu metal ways. I really love their stuff. They perfectly hit for me. I love theatrical bands, and I love that kind of, sort of nu metal-esque style anyway. And on top of that, they're really cool. I've been fortunate enough to see them live a few times now. I actually have videos of said performances on my channel, just in case you want to go over there and check them out. Nothing else would be more than happy to kind of point you in the right direction as far as their music goes, because I think they're fantastic. But anyway, folks, what are we doing here? What am I yammering on about today? Well, folks, this is Concert Confessions, episode number 6. It is also number 179 of my total concerts that I've attended. I am making my way to 200, damn it. But, so this particular episode is about a show that I was at just last night, featuring the main touring bands were Vampires Everywhere, Dreamwake, and Cultus Black. There were also 2 local bands that were on point. You had The Fiction We Create and Bachelor's Grove. I'm going to go over there and I'm going to spout off my whole experience with the show, and boy, oh boy, do I have thoughts about this one. So, let's get into it. So I have kind of an itinerary that I like to follow when I do these. I've written down on my thing. First thing I always like to talk about real quick is the venue itself. That being specifically the WC Social Club. I have attended this venue I don't know how many times. It is a great spot, especially for bands that I like to follow. Kind of those sort of like mid-tier sort of bands, Not going to sell out arenas or anything like that, but, they'll go over there and they'll pack a good space in a smaller venue. Really don't have much in the way of bad things to say about them. Like, they're a great spot in general. I will say, I hate their lighting, because it is terrible for if you're trying to take pictures of the band and stuff like that. Something about, like, the muted tones and stuff that they use for their lighting effects. I don't know, man. It just, half my pictures always seem to turn out like garbage. But in general, the lighting is actually pretty cool, like the setup and everything. Sound is always really good. The staff are always really cool. Like I said, I don't really have anything bad to say about the place. It's a great spot if you like sort of, and they do a variety of stuff. They don't just do metal bands and stuff. I've seen, a couple hip-hop shows and stuff there too, so really neat spot. Let's move on to the bands themselves, because this is, of course, the meat of the whole thing. I'm going to kind of speed through a little bit, just because I need to get to the last one. A lot of thoughts on that one. So the first band up was a local band called Bachelor's Grove. I had never heard of them, despite them being part of the local scene. I enjoyed their set. They had sort of a little bit of a Raven Black kind of vibe, if you're familiar with that band at all. One of my friends said that she felt that the vocalist kind of reminded her a little bit of the vocalist of Kitty, kind of earlier in her career, which I could kind of see. But yeah, they were sort of a little bit of a theatrical kind of horror-themed sort of metal band. Four-piece band. The lead singer was super badass. She had this whole sort of like badass like goth pixie thing going on, and absolutely killed it as the front woman. Like just the energy she put into it, the way that she presented herself, like she commanded the stage. It was really fun. I do have a couple critiques, and I say this with love because I did enjoy their set. Um, well, the lead singer, I think, again, did a great job on stage and really presenting, that performance. The other members performed perfectly fine musically, but they're a little bit wooden on stage, And look, everybody performs differently. It is what it is. But obviously, when you're performing live, part of the experience is that, that connection to the audience. And I think it's one of those things. I mean, I'm not exactly sure how long they've been around as a band. A little bit. I looked into it a little, but maybe that'll just come with a little bit more familiarity and everything like that. But that was one thing that kind of struck me a little bit, was like, especially when you're the opener, you have to work extra hard to get the crowd on your side. And I don't think it was for like lack of effort or anything, because they were performing well and everything. But I do think, just a little bit, some extra movement, some extra crowd participation, things like that are really going to help, in the future for their live performances. And I mean, honestly, though, really beyond that, like, the other thing, they need a bigger sound. I looked up some of their music, that's like available online and stuff, and like they have a really great sound to what they're doing. But I don't know if it was just an equipment thing or what it was, but everything felt very muted. The vocals were a little bit muted, but like, when the guitarist, when he was hitting his solos, well, they had two guitarists, but when one of them was hitting his solos, it just felt very muted. And it's like, again, local band, you need to really pump up the show and everything. So just a couple things to work on. But overall, I did enjoy their set. They were fine, or they were a fun opening band. I got some pictures with them after everything was said and done. Like I said, they're a cool local act. I'm interested to see their progression. Moving on to the second act, another local one. This is the band, which I love the name of their band, but it's always hard for me to remember. It's called The Fiction We Create. And I think that's such a cool band name. Actually, it turned out that another band with two guitarists. Like, first two bands didn't have bassists for some reason. But whatever, hey. I was actually familiar with one of the bassists. Their name is Mel, and they actually are a bassist in another band that I follow, another local band called the Waterfall King. So that was really cool. I always like seeing their performance. Like, they're very, very good at what they do. And really, everybody was really solid at what they were doing. Again, kind of local metal band. They had a mix of clean and harsh vocals. I enjoyed their set overall. I thought it was fun. It didn't exactly blow me away, but for an opening set, I enjoyed it. And again, I say everything that I say with love, but I do have one critique. All the band members, really solid on stage. Like, they definitely had more going of kind of what I wanted from Bachelor's Grove. They had a louder sound. They were a little bit more animated on stage. The one element, and I hate to go over there and pick on anybody in particular, the drummer was fine, but just that. Like, as the drummer, your job is to really, you're not just keeping the beat, like, you're pushing the tempo. You can be a huge part of the sound that goes on, and I kind of felt like the drummer was just keeping the beat. And again, everybody performs differently, so I'm not trying to be a dick or anything like that. I don't think he's a poor drummer or anything. But it was just that thing of, like, again, live performance, a little extra oomph goes a long way. And drummers, highly underrated in what they can contribute to a live setting. So that would just be my personal critique for that gentleman, if he happens to see this. Again, not saying you're a bad drummer or anything, but find your personality on stage and really go over there and push it, because, again, you could really be a huge asset, whereas instead, it just felt like you're kind of in the background. So, but again, I say it with love. I say it with love. Moving on to the third band. This was the first of the touring bands and the band that I was there to see. Cultus fucking Black. Like I said, they've been around for a little bit now. I became aware of them shortly after the dissolvement of the band Motograder, because the lead singer of Cultus Black had been the lead singer of that band. And I very quickly started following that project, and I was literally there on their first line of tours that they did, and I've been fortunate enough to see them. I think this is my third time seeing them now. And it was cool because this was like a smaller venue, to see them in, which I'd love to see them play bigger venues as well, but it is cool to have that more intimate setting, especially because they are so high energy and because they, again, like they have such a great like live presence and stage performance. They were a weird choice for this tour with the other two touring bands. I don't know who came up with the touring schedule and plans. I don't know if it was like a management thing or whatever, but Cultus Black definitely stood out from every other band that performed. If anything, they probably had more in common with the two opening bands than they did with their tour mates. But they were badass. Like, I always loved their set. They always put on a great fucking show. And, I mean, they make you feel it, They aren't just theatrical for the sake of being theatrical. They really do go over there and get the crowd into it. And the crowd themselves were definitely responding. Like, I don't know how many people were there to see him. I was not the only person wearing a Cultus Black shirt, though, I will say that. But regardless of anything, the crowd was there for it. They were digging what was going on. It was just a really great set. I had a lot of fun with it. They played a couple of songs that I hadn't seen them perform live, which was extra neat. At one point in time, I was, because I got a few videos of their performance, and I was getting a video of one of their songs that they did with Twisted, the band Twisted. And, like, they ended up having mic problems at one point, and I was like, oh, well, never mind this video, let's get the next song, I guess. But they were badass, man. Like, I really, really liked their set. I thought they were fucking great. I have nothing but great things to say about them. After the set, I got to talk a little bit with the lead singer at his table. Super good dude. Let's move on to Dreamwake. Dreamwake was a weird experience, but in a wonderful way. I did not really know much about Dreamwake prior to this whole thing. I'd never really heard any of their music. The only thing I'd seen was when they did like the video package for like the trailer for the tour. They'd had a little bit of their music in that. So all I knew about them was that they were a metal-ish band that also had a saxophone player. I was like, oh yeah, let's see what this is about. Sadly, the saxophonist couldn't be there. I guess he had some personal stuff he had to attend to, so he actually had to leave the tour. That was admittedly a bit of a bummer, but, you can't help that. And I hope whatever was going on in that gentleman's life is, resolved or doing well or whatever, because, obviously personal stuff has to come first. I really enjoyed their band. Like, it was a weird, it was a little bit of a weird sound, not my usual kind of thing, but it was one of those things where they were so genuine on stage, I couldn't help but kind of fall in love with what they were doing. I mean, the fucking lead singer had a fucking, like, late 80s New Balance style windbreaker on, so they had this whole sort of, like, retro 80s vibe, and, like, they definitely incorporate that into their, not only into their sound, but their imagery. But, like, again, it wasn't just gimmicky or anything. Like, they were all really good at what they did. The guitarist in particular, man, fucking, like, he was just hitting the shit out of that in a really great way. And that's not to speak ill of anybody else involved. The vocalist, great fucking vocal range, really liked his stuff. Drummer was doing a really great job. And the bassist, fucking hitting the bass. It was a good time. I really enjoyed their set. So much so, I would say for me personally, they were my find of the night. Like, I'm not going to go over there and say I'm like the biggest of biggest fans of theirs, but like they impressed me, and I'm definitely going to go over there and follow their stuff from now on. So I enjoyed the hell out of it. They were also the first band that really fully utilized the sound system, because even Cultus Black, I felt like their sound was a little bit muted on stage. But let's get to the main thing here. Let's get to Vampires Everywhere. I, before this, did not know anything about Vampires Anywhere. In my head, because I hadn't heard anything about them ever, I kind of thought maybe they were a newer-ish band. And then when I saw some of the fans in attendance who were wearing, like Vampires Everywhere shirts, I noticed that a number of them were younger. So again, that led to my presumption of like, oh yeah, maybe they're just newer. Um, they weren't. The lead singer got out on stage, and I was like, that motherfucker is older than me, and I'm damn near 40. But whatever, I don't care about that. That's fine. Here's the thing, though. After Dreamwake got done with their performance, 2/3 of the audience went back to go see Dreamwake, get their autographs, merch, what have you, and then they fucking left. And that was it. Like, I have been to shows where it was clear that the headliner was not the most popular band there. I have never seen a drop off that drastic. It was painful. Painful. And from my understanding, from talking with, some people who were associated with the tour and stuff, yeah, apparently that wasn't like a one-off thing. That wasn't like an Illinois thing. That was like apparently every single show has been Dreamwake finishes, most of the audience goes home. And that didn't bode well, but I was like, all right, let's see how they do. So I ended up looking a little bit into them while I was attending their show and I guess they started out as kind of like an emo screamo band, and kind of transitioned more into metalcore. They were fine on stage. They should not have been the headliners of this tour. I don't know who made that call. I don't know if that was their decision or, again, a management thing or whatever. I don't know why the fuck anybody thought that they were going to be the headline. I guess it was a nostalgia thing, because I guess, like, for a while they'd broken up as a group, and then the lead singer reformed, and it really hasn't been the same band. It's just him and then rotating members and stuff. But, again, I'm not trying to, I like other bands that do that too, so. It was cringy, though. Like, again, they weren't terrible on stage or anything. The lead singer's vocals are pretty good. The bassist was adding some backing vocals, doing a good job. Guitarist, everybody was confident in what they were doing. But everything about it just screamed, you are not the headliner of this show. I cannot emphasize that enough. It was, yeah, considering the fact that you had Cultus Black up first, and then you had Dreamwake after them, Cultus Black brought a lot more production, a lot more stage presence. It was a much more involved performance, Then you had Dreamwake, who clearly who a good chunk of the fans were there to see. And they brought the sound, and they really were incredible on stage. And then you had Vampires Everywhere, who were there. If it were me, if I were recasting this particular show or tour, and if Vampires Everywhere had to be on it, quite frankly, I would have gone over there and put Dreamwake at the top with Cultus Black just below them, and then Vampires Everywhere at the bottom tier of the touring bands, because quite fucking frankly, not very many people gave a shit about them. Like, there were far fewer fans after Dreamwake left, and then they kept just peeling off to the extent where the show itself was fairly packed, not fully packed, but it had a, good sized audience. By the end, man, it was like maybe about 3 rows worth of people up front, and I'm being a little bit generous there. It wasn't a great look for Vampires Everywhere, and they fucking knew it. They did not put on an encore or even try, and that was the right decision to do. Now, all that said, let's move on real quick. Let's talk about the crowd. The crowd, up until Vampires Everywhere, was firmly a good crowd. But my only point of contention with the crowd was that there were these, like, sort of 3 brotastic bros who were very near me. They clearly were drinking. They clearly were young and dumb. They were a little bit loud and occasionally obnoxious, but they weren't too bad. Like, I've been next to worse in concerts before. I could have done without them. I'm just saying. But at the same time, they didn't cause me too much grief. About my only point of contention, real point of contention with them, was that they would try to go over there and start three-man mosh pits right next to the fucking gate. Or not, well, like right next to the front, which is where I am. And it's like, I'm not, go in the pit, you idiots. Like, that's what the fucking pit is for. Don't do it right next to where the fucking people, like, we've clearly pushed ourselves away from that stuff. Go in the pit. That bugged the hell out of me. But genuinely, the rest of the show, even for Cultus Black, like, I was definitely singing along to most of their songs, and I wasn't the only one. There were at least a couple other people who were going for it. And when Dreamwake hit, fuck me sideways, man. The crowd was 100% on their side. It was just, for a band that I knew nothing about going into, it was great to see the crowd just be there for it. And then Vampires Everywhere happened. And again, I don't know what the fuck to say about that. It was painful to watch. And I'm having a little bit of a poke at Vampires Everywhere with this. But, like, I do want to emphasize, like, I don't hate them or anything like that. Like, I didn't like their music, quite frankly. They were fine, I guess, but, like, very generic. Nothing stood out about them. If there's any perfect representation of how poorly things went with the crowd for them, after Dreamwake left, I went back to go see them and get some merch and stuff. And up to that point, I'd had, like, basically a frontline view to the show. Coming back, I figured I would lose that out, because people would fill that spot. I got a better spot coming back. There were less people in my way. So yeah, it was really bad. I have never, like I said, in all my years going to shows, I've never seen a drop off that bad. And it's one of those things, I can't even blame the crowd, like, because it just, nobody was really into what they were doing. And when I say that, there were absolutely some fans who were there for them. And I don't want my comments to come off as, like, I'm, taking a shot at the fan base or anything. I've been to shows for bands who drew less people. No lie. I've been to shows where I was effectively the entire fan base. That was much earlier in my concert career. But, so yeah. I don't want to completely be like, but man, was that just sad. And it's like, when I think about the fact that they still have tour dates to go, oh, that makes, I'm going to toss this at you on the off chance that Vampires Everywhere sees this, or, maybe somebody goes over there. What you do fine. You're not a headlining band. I'm sorry. Like, maybe in certain markets. Like, I don't know, because I know, again, there's, like, a nostalgia thing. But you do not seem to have the level of nostalgia to warrant a full headlining tour. I think the fact that you guys got Dreamwake on there and had Cultus Black on there was probably what saved that tour from being either canceled or just, like, an unmitigated disaster. Because it was really bad. And again, but I don't think you could even deny it in this case. So, but anyway, let's move on to the merch. I did get some merch. Just a couple things. I got, boom, Cultus Black shirt. This was the last of the Cultus Black shirts that I didn't own that they had for sale. It's not my favorite of their designs. This is the favorite of my designs, but it's got kind of a chibi look. Only problem, they were out of XXL. Gotta love it. So this is an XL, but it fits okay for me. I've lost a little weight lately, so. And I was just going to pick up a CD from Boom, from Dreamwake. You can see sort of very 80s style. But they didn't have any CDs, so I opted to buy a shirt. And it's a cool design. I like that. Plus, it's one of those things, if I ever decide that I don't like them for some reason, I could probably still wear this still wear this shirt and say that it's for some defunct film company. Not merch, but stuff that I did manage to get. I got set lists. 3 of them, which is the most I've ever gotten at a show. I specifically got ones from The Fiction We Create. Got one from Bachelor's Grove. And this was the coolest one for me. It was also the one that I had to lobby the most for. I kept having to go over there and call out to the band. I got one for Cultus Black. Yeah! This one fell out of my pocket at one point. I went to go put my stuff away in my car real quick, and I was like, 1, 2, where did number 3 go? Where did number 3 go? Luckily, I found it on the ground. Nobody had moved it or anything, so. But yeah, so that's my little haul from the show. Let's talk about pros and cons here, and then I'm going to grade the show real quick. Pros, Cultus Black was great. I really loved what they were doing. I also really enjoyed Dreamwake, and I was surprised at how much I enjoyed Dreamwake. Again, they were my find of the show. The opening bands, while not like crazy, holy shit amazing, were fun, and they're both bands that I'd like to see more from in the future as time goes by. So, you know, kind of looking them as sort of like prospects, which is neat. The crowd overall, very good, up until a point. Again, with the exception of the 3 fucking bro-tastic bros. But otherwise, great fucking, you know, genuinely really solid crowd, good performance. Cons, again, no double XL on the shirt. Folks, fat people like good music too. I'm just saying, if you're a band, whatever you think you're going to need, double it when it comes to XL products, man. At least in America. We're a rotund country. I can't even call the crowd as being a con because, quite fucking frankly, I don't blame them one bit when it came to the whole Vampires Everywhere thing. Vampires Everywhere was definitely a big con, though. Like, and I hate to do that because, like, I don't like to shit on a band like that, but it was like, when you're the fucking headliner and